Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Frank Zacarri, and as I said, we are starting a new category on life-altering events called near-death experience. This will be one of the first 2 episodes in this series, and I am absolutely thrilled. We're going to forego all the introductions and all the propaganda that I have to say in the beginning, and we're going to get right into this because this is exciting stuff. And we're going to talk about 3 hours and 33 minutes in heaven. Now, are near-death experience real? I was a military medic, and I spoke to men and women after some life-saving surgery, and they spoke about being drawn to this light and feeling their body floating off the operating table and speaking to something or someone. Now, did this happen? Was it the lights of the operating room? Was it the effect of anesthetic? Was it a hallucination, or was it real? Now, in the 70s, as a military medic, they didn't train us on anything along these lines. And we very, very rarely spoke of it because there was a fear they would say you're mentally ill. So it was never talked about or never reported. A few years later, I read a book, 90 Minutes in Heaven, with some skepticism. And then shortly before my mother died, she talked about having surgery back when I was 14 years old. My mother died maybe 15 years ago when she was 77. So she was maybe 36, had cancer, was pregnant, had surgery, life-threatening surgery. And she had this experience. And she never told anybody because back in the 60s, people thought you were nuts. But she wrote it down. And just before she died, she gave it to us and said, read this. And it was shocking. It was, and then I went back. Okay, I remember and when I was in the military, I remember reading that book. These things are happening far too often for it to be a coincidence. Far too often. Then I discovered the book, 3 hours and 33 minutes in heaven, by my guest today, Regan Forston. And I decided this is a conversation that has to be heard. We have to have this conversation. Now, Roger is a certified life between lives therapist from the Newton Institute. So let's hear his story. Roger, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Oh, hi. Yeah, everybody has a hard time with my name, but it's so simple. It's just Regan. Like some people think it's Reagan, but it's just Regan.
Regan.
Actually, it's not my born name, but I changed it. About 30 years ago when I became an entertainer, and nobody could pronounce my last name, which was Bowden Distal.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
So if you're an entertainer, you got to have people be able to say your name.
Absolutely.
So I changed it to Regan Forston back then. So, and it's been that way ever since. I'm a SAG actor. I mean, I was in Hollywood, did acting for about 12 years down there. And when I got my Screen Actors Guild card, that's the name that I use. So my driver's license actually has both my names on it. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, I would imagine it is.
Yeah.
I could see the police.
When you're in Hollywood and you cash checks and you have 2 names, it's not a big deal because, but you're someplace else in the country and they think you're some kind of scam artist or something.
Exactly.
You got to using well, who are you? What's your real name?
Exactly. Let me see a driver's license. And it has
Regan.
both
Yeah,
names.
Regan.
I love it.
Yeah. The main thing I want to point out to you in this whole interview, and for people, your guests that are watching, wherever they find you all over the world, is that this process that I went through, where I experienced all this time in heaven, which was a life changer for me, as it is for most people. We've kind of moved beyond the near-death experience now, because some people, when they have a near-death experience and they just experience the light, or they experience that feeling of some being more of themselves than they think, and all of a sudden they realize, oh my God, there is something beyond this life. For some of those people, and wrote all these books, that was life-changing for them. Just that, even if it was just for a few minutes, or if they were floating above the operating table and watching what was going on below, and even though they were unconscious, their physical body was unconscious, they remember what they saw and remember everything that happened. Or people that have been in automobile crashes and find themselves hovering above the accident as they're removing their body, taking it to hospital from that. There's all kinds of things like that, and that's got me interested years ago too. And I read all those books because there's something inside you. And I think most people, like even watching this today, there's just something that's in our DNA. It's in our computer, in our head, that we're born with, that has the sense that we are more than just this physical body. And that was proof to some people. Well, now, because the whole world is changing and how this topic is now easily accepted by most people rather than, pushing us away, I think we're changing as a species in a way, as we're really realizing that we're not here by accident, that our life has meaning and purpose, and that there is a heaven, there is a higher, consciousness than what we have in this body. So now, because of the way things are changing, this process I went through is something anybody can do. And the people that attempt to have this experience like I did, it's about 85% of the people are successful. So that means the majority of people that go through this process, that have this life-changing experience, are able to visit heaven. Only what's great is it's not just for a few minutes. You get to spend as much time as you want there. As I'm a facilitator with helping other people have the experience I had now, I'm just there. They take, when they get to the state and they're in heaven, I'm just there to keep your human self from falling asleep, because they're in the state that's just like about falling asleep. And by talking to them, asking them questions, asking them what are they seeing, what are they experiencing, then I just kind of, follow them around. And the people are like, they're like kids in candy stores.
I bet.
I mean, when they're over there, because in this experience, like with mine, the cool thing is that your human self is totally aware of what's going on the whole time. In other words, it's almost like you have a split screen in yourself, where half of you is there, seeing what you're seeing, feeling what you're feeling, and just amazed. And the other part of you knows that you're in hypnosis and that you hear the facilitator talking to you. It's the strangest, kind of coolest feeling to be in both places at the same time. Everybody experiences it a little different, but it's kind of the same. And that's why we know now, as we've been doing this research, and Michael Newton, who discovered this process, let me tell you how that started.
Good.
Which was kind of interesting how it all started.
Perfect.
Michael Newton was a regular therapist, and he used hypnosis for some of his clients. And he was one of his clients. He was finished with the process, and he was starting to bring him out of hypnosis. And the client said, "No, I don't want to. I don't want to come out." And he says, "Why?" And he says, "I want to go home." And he says, "You mean you want me to wake you up so you're here at home?" And the man says, "No, I want to go home." And he went, "What?" And he says, "Okay." And he gave him the instruction. He says, "I want you to take me where home is." And all of a sudden, this guy is with a guide or an angel. And Michael just followed him, just says, "Okay, take me where you're going." And he actually went to heaven. And then he went, "Oh, I'm home." And like heaven was home to him. And all of his buddies were there. All these other souls were there to welcome him. And like I think a dead relative or something was there that he talked to. And then when that was over, Michael, who didn't even believe in this kind of stuff, he said, "Whoa, maybe we stumbled on something here." So in the course of his career, he proceeded to do that with 7,000 people.
Wow.
This guy, sometimes he had people waiting 3 or 4 years to go through this process, because everybody wanted to do this, but he's only one man.
Right.
So about 10 years ago, as he was getting older, he said, "You know what? I got to get other people to help me do this. And because this research, we've got to continue it." So he started the Newton Institute. And since then, now we have about 250 therapists trained. We're in 40 countries. And, we're spread around 40 different countries. And so pretty much anybody that wants to have this experience can get it done. The process, it took a year. It was a year for me to get my certification. Because I had to do so many, sessions and have so many successful sessions and everything. Right. And once I did that, and then they put me on their website. Now, people listening to this, if they go to the Newton Institute, .org, I believe. There's a whole list of all the therapists in all the countries, and I'm in California. I actually travel all over California. As you can imagine, back in Michael's day, people came from foreign countries, and they would, get a hotel and stay for a week in a city. They came from thousands of miles because he was the only one doing this. But now you pretty much can find, I think there's about 50 of us in the US, so there's still not a lot of us, but we can help people. A past life regression actually could be done on Zoom. People don't realize how easy. I am blown away by how easy it is for people to get into the state where they can go to a past life and then on to heaven. I mean, I'm with them when my clients there's in the state, which takes about 15 minutes to an hour, depending on how difficult or how, people have everybody could be hypnotized. Well, you can talk about that in a minute. It's a natural phenomena that your body does twice a day, at least. And that's just as you're waking up and just as you're falling asleep, you're in a kind of a hypnotic state. Yeah. Yes. So it's a natural thing. And all we do is do it by, do it on call. Okay, we want to go, we'll just do it now rather than waiting for someone to fall asleep. So, and once they get into that state, we all seem to have, I call it a God switch. In my book, in the 3 hours there, that's what I call it, because what we found out is it seems we all have this ability. Some people don't do it on the first try. I'd say about 60% of my clients, they do it on the first try. The other 40%, it's like learning to ride a bike, and all kids aren't as coordinated as everybody, and sometimes it takes a little more. But the other 40% that come back, more than half of them on the second try have the experience. And the other people aren't giving up, like a lot of my clients, as we almost can kind of get there. And it's just a matter of relaxing and letting it happen. Because like I said, hypnosis is a natural state. But our minds, our logical mind gets in the way sometimes. And I've had a few people that they go right to a past life, immediately go into the heaven, and then all of a sudden they just get up on the thing. They go, "This can't be happening. This can't be happening." I mean, and their mind gets in the way, and I go, "You were in heaven there, and then you just told yourself you weren't."
And you talked yourself out of it. Wow.
I know. And so when then a lot of times they'll think about it for a little while. They'll come back, and then boom, they go right there, and we have the experience. For somebody who really wants, if you want to find out what your mission is, why you decided to be born, because it was a conscious thing of soul when you were in heaven, and you want to prove that heaven's real, that there's guides or people assigned to you. Like right now, Frank, there's unseen, but they're here with me. They're here with you right now, and they're seeing and everything that's going on here. And everybody has them, we found out so far. And depending on people's belief system, when they find themselves in the state, a lot of times they'll see angels, they'll say, "Oh, my angels are here." Or some people will go, "Oh, there's so-and-so, there's my buddy," because they recognize them from being with, for hundreds of lives or whatever. And sometimes people just see a globe of energy, because actually some of the more advanced souls is what they see, because when we're on the other side, when you boil it down to who we really are as soul, is we're energy. Right. We're different colored energies depending on our level of awareness. And in Michael Newton's books, he did a whole series on there in the 7,000 people that he did, and he asked so many questions. He was such a good researcher, and we're doing the same now. We because we're continuing the research, and we continue to find new little things or places in heaven that people can go. But I'll tell you, when you have the experience, for most people, it's life altering, because all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, there is a heaven. I came down here for a reason. I have a mission to get going with now, so I can stop getting off my pity potty and being a victim and saying, "Oh, life is so difficult." And you realize that you chose these difficult situations to help you learn something. And once you do that, you kind of, you get off your pity potty and you start getting to work with completing your mission. And some people think, well, we all think like, okay, if we have a mission, it must be like somebody like Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Jesus or something like that. But we find out it's so simple sometimes.
Mhm.
What I found out when I was there, when I asked around and I said, well, I kind of know what my mission is, but I'm not quite sure. And they said, it's Regan, you came back in this body to learn to be kind.
Ooh.
That's my main goal. There were some sub goals, and one of them was to teach this to be a researcher, like, and doing what I'm doing right now, because I've never felt so alive and so like I'm in my 70s now, and I'm just getting to work, you know. So it's
You can
like
see it.
I could see myself doing this until I don't know, I'm 100 or something, because it's such an exhilarating feeling to be with people as they're experiencing their higher selves. And it's these processes sometimes are 4, 5, 6 hours. I had one 7 hours the other day.
Mhm.
Whew. And you imagine having this intensity of this whole process and for 7 hours, and boy, I'm totally spent afterwards.
Can
One of
imagine.
my clients I saw in Los Angeles, when I was finished, I laid down. I didn't wake up for 17 hours because it's physically, energetically wise, takes a lot out of you.
Well, you can see you love it, just the expression and how you light up and you talk
Oh,
about it. There's a billion questions here, Regan.
yeah. Well, let's just
Let,
ask me some of those questions, and we'll.
all right.
Because
So,
I'm sure right now, people are listening to this and they're going, their own questions are coming in their mind.
yes, as I was reading your stuff, I was going, oh my God. All right. What's heaven like? Is it a bunch of clouds and puffiness, or is it streets of gold? What's it like?
Well, in a way, it's kind of all of the above, because when people are there, it changes. For me, when I was there, and because I'd read some of Michael Newton's books, my mind was making up what it was going to be like.
Mhm.
And when I got over there, it was different than I had made up in my mind. Actually, I was a little disappointed at first, because it was like, wait a minute, this is a different picture than I pictured. But a couple of days after, or actually by the next morning when I had that, I was like blown away. And I was really reliving the experience I had. For me, when I was there, I had a guide that showed up. His name was Rebazar. And it was like the whole time I'm there, it's like I'm seeing him. And then he's like a little bit like a hologram or like energy. And he's always to my right a little bit, but I could feel him there and I'm communicating with him. Like when I would ask a question, I would just hear it immediately. I didn't see his lips move or anything like that. But it's so normal over there to just communicate through thought or like telepathy. It just seems normal. You don't even question it. You don't even think about it till later. You go, oh my gosh, yeah, I was just getting this information in my mind. When I went before a council, which I would say 90% of my clients that I have that I help in this process, they're fortunate enough to go before a council and they've prepared a list of questions. Before you do this process, it's like there's preparatory work you do because you want to get the most out of it. So the one thing that I had to do before I had the experience was make a list of questions that I wanted to ask. If I could ask all these spiritual beings on the other side questions about heaven, about my life, and I wanted to know. So I made a list of about 15 questions that I wanted to find answers to. And also I made a list of the players in my life's play. These are the people that come in and out of your life. Like if you're watching a play on in a theater, and characters kind of come and go, and they're some of them are main characters, some of them are minor characters, but they all play a role in your life. So I wrote all those down in a little paragraph about them, especially if you have a nemesis. Like if you have someone that you can't stand to be around, or if you've had somebody in your life, like a parent or a teacher, someone that was cruel to you, and you still like, oh God, I hate that person or something, you want to find out why are they in your life, especially. Okay. So when I'm over there, the facilitator, because, keeps me focused, and he'll say, okay, Regan, now you're there and you have this list of questions. maybe you want to go before the council and get some of them answered. And so I would ask Rebazar, I would say, Rebazar, can I go to the council? And he said, sure. And instantly, when you think something over there, this is the thing in heaven. When you think of something, boom, you're like right there. All of a sudden, I was transported, and I'm in a, it's hard to say because I remember mostly I was focused on these beings that showed up, and there was about 6 of them sitting at a table, kind of the same level as me. Rebazar was off to my right. And then my facilitator was saying, okay, Regan, now you want to ask this question because this is something you wanted to know. So he would remind me of my question. I would ask that to the council. And depending on what the question was, a different, like I had 3 of the 6, like I can still picture them in my mind, just like this happened yesterday. There had 6 of them there. They had like hoodies on, you know, a little bit. So I couldn't see their faces. And then as it was, someone had an answer for me, I could see their face. And one of them was a Chinese looking gentleman. And it's kind of like they would kind of form as like human, so I could communicate with them, but yet they had energy all around them, like different colored energies and things. And some people over there just see these energies and they're like balls of energy. And but they're able to communicate with them. And when you're in that state, it's just like they're human. I mean, they have no problem just communicating with them. But because we're human and we see things in human form here, a lot of times they'll appear, you know, in human form, or the half of them from the waist up will be like human, and they'll be wearing robes and jewelries and things. And the other part is energy. It's kind of all in, a little bit in between. But when you're there, they're real. In other words, they're real entities. And to the person so far, and in the 50,000 cases that we've had, I have never heard of a negative experience from people with these judges. They're not like, okay, you did this and boy, you're going to go to hell and oh my God, you know, and you're an awful person. It's always like, picture having parents that are the most loving and kind, but the best teachers in the world. They want nothing more than for you to learn, to progress, and to be a better person. And that's what these guides are like, you know. So the Chinese gentleman that was there had a little Chinese hat on top. I know his name was Late C. And Late C, I'm not sure how you spell it. But he was the one, when I would ask a lot of questions, would give me a lot of answers. And that's when I found out what my, you know, what my life's mission was, you know, to learn to be kind. And so there was a case. I always laugh about this one because it's pretty, people relate to this. One of the persons having this experience, when she's on the other side, and she said, what was my purpose? And they said, your purpose was to come down to earth and to learn patience. And then we asked her, well, you know, in human years, like, you know, like how long have you been, you know, learning patience? She said 500 years.
500 years.
Yeah. So you see, I mean, to learn to be godlike, and to that it's a process, and it's not instantaneous. I mean, we learn in spoonfuls, like we get spoonfuls of God, because if we got more than that,
you couldn't handle it.
We would go crazy, you know.
Right.
So it's just but that's fun, is the journey. See, it's the journey is getting this little spoonful and having this little awareness, like people listening to the show right now, and they're getting a little spoonful, and then something in them is getting excited. Right. And they're thinking about the possibilities, like, wow, you know, what if I could really prove that that heaven is real? Now, a lot of people won't need to have this experience because they're advanced enough that when they hear us talk today, Frank, and they're learning all this stuff, that's as good to them as they'll just trust that I'm not a liar, that this wasn't an hallucination, that all these cases are real and that heaven is real. And that's all they'll need. They'll go, wow, okay, they've proven heaven is real. Now all things start to make sense in my life. You know, I realize that I am here for a reason. So they won't need to have this experience. But for the people that want to be pioneers and they want to have this experience, I recommend it to anybody. There's nothing to fear. Nobody we've had in the 50,000 cases, there's not been one iota of anything negative, anything unloving, unkind, or anything like that to happen. It could be very emotional for people. Like when I was over there, when I went to a past life and saw who I was and what I was doing, I started bawling my eyes out. Like I'm on the table on the bed and the facilitator's there. And when I saw what I was doing, my human self, who I am now, Regan, realized that, man, I was not doing some nice stuff. And because I'm not that person anymore that I was in that lifetime, but I still was like, I felt ashamed and I felt bad and everything. And that's one thing I warn people of, is that we weren't always these angels that we are now. In other words, this process of learning to love and learning to, learning to be more godlike, in a sense, it's been a process. So most of us are kind of bad before we're good. Just like children, when they're, most children are very, very selfish. It's all about them as they're growing up. And with good teachers and everything, they learn that they have to look around and realize that you have to be kind, that you have to, like with kids, you have to learn to share.
Right.
You have to learn to be nice to people. You don't just take everything for yourself. And it's a learning process. And that's kind of like what we found out on the other side, is we're down here to learn, sometimes simple things. I've had people before, when they found that their life's mission was just to bring into the world, get married, and there were going to be these souls coming in, their children, and it was to teach them, to be more loving and kind. And that was their whole purpose of life. Other people have bigger things. But the thing that surprised me is, like, most people on the other side, when they find out what their mission is, and they realize that they're actually doing their mission right now. But sometimes, like a client of mine was, the council said, well, you're doing really good, but you could step it up. In other words, you're kind of slacking off a little bit. And when she came back, she realized that's, she was kind of doing her mission, but she'd gotten too sidetracked and everything. And she needed to really, it's time to, like, hey, let's reboot here and really get going,
Get back and focus. I can ask you a question here. Let me ask you.
So to answer your question, as we first started out, heaven, it's like, it's energies, but things can manifest over there, just like gardens, and there's a place of rejuvenation that about 90% of my clients go to. Like when they go to a past life, they see themselves pass away. I have them turn around and see who's there, and there's usually a dead relative, that's there to welcome them, or a guide, an angel, a being of some sort. And then we get the guide's name so we can communicate. And then we say, well, can my client, let's say my client's Linda, can Linda visit heaven right now, or, go to her soul group where she can visit, some relatives that have passed on. And they all usually say, sure, boom. And then they're there, and then this is like, when I was there, I got to see my dad, my mom, and my brother, all who have passed on. I didn't have like in-depth conversations with them, but I had an interaction with them, which only lasted a brief moment, but it was enough that it just, I just went, wow, Dad, you're, and
Okay.
There's Mom, there's my brother. And that's all that I needed. I mean, there was in that look, or that little time that I had with them, a whole lot happened instantaneously that just went with me, that I just realized that they're just fine. It was like they're just in the next room, and I realize now that my mom, dad, and them, they're just,
They're here.
just a few inches away. Everything's fine,
Wow.
Other people have in-depth conversations. Like, for instance, one of my clients had a parent who was very cruel to them. It was a very bad mom. And when my client's over there, the first thing she says, she's in hypnosis, and she goes, God, my mom is smiling at me. My mom, wow, she's glowing, And I said, well, I'm going to give you a minute now. You have a conversation with her and ask her why she was so hard on you. And then I'm quiet, and I'd say, well, just let me know when you're done having your conversation. And then my client will say, okay, we're done. And I'll say, okay, now I've got the recorder on, because we record these sessions. And I say, because you might forget some of this, and that if you're willing, can you tell me what you guys talked about? And then she said, well, my mom said, we planned this before we were born. I was going to come down and be your mother, and you needed to be more you needed to be more independent and more self-assured. So I'm going to be really hard on you because because what I'm going to do is going to, cause you to have to learn to be that way. And when she came back, out of that, and we're talking about session afterwards, she says, now I see my mom in a whole different light. She was there to help me, not to harm me.
Wow, that's interesting. I got to ask you a question.
Okay.
I'm Italian Sicilian, and one of the things we heard growing up is, if let's take an example. Yeah, you have a husband and a wife, and the wife is the salt pillar, the salt of the earth, the best person ever, is clearly going to heaven. All right, husband, kind of an asshole and not a good individual, and basically reforms and slides under the gate as the gate is closing. Okay, so the Italians would say to me, so do that person, do I end up with that person again? Are we a family again? Or am I in a higher position and they're up in the nosebleed seats? How does that work?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, for one thing, is what we found in our research now is that, in a sense, everybody goes to heaven, even people that do everything, even people that do bad things. We found no such evidence so far of a fiery hell of so forth. In other words, or a vengeful God or anything that's unkind or anything like that. But we have found that that souls, when they're on the other side, if they've had a life where they've done too many negative things that haven't been, haven't been on the plus side of life, they're so upset with themselves, because they didn't go down to do that. A lot of them go down just to do good, but because it's so difficult on earth and there's so many ways to get sidetracked and off your mission and to get seduced by, the negative power, as I say, that we see down here. When they're up there, it's like, I got it, blew it. What was I doing? And usually it's the soul themselves that chooses what they need to do to rectify that. And a lot of times it can be to, gosh, I was so mean like this. Maybe I need to feel the pain that I caused others to kind of teach me what I need to learn or something. And they'll decide to come back down and, like we all talk about karma, like you get what you give. And sometimes sometimes they learn their lesson by having to go through the difficult things that they did to other people. Sometimes we found over there in the research, sometimes souls will put themselves in time out, as I call it, but it's kind of like a purgatory, but they'll go to a place to reflect, to go to a place to get more schooling and everything, there to learn how to be more loving and kind. And sometimes it might be like down here, what we would say 500 years or 1,000 years, they'll put themselves in a limbo kind of like, or purgatory kind of like, or actually purgatory has a thing of like you're being punished or something, but it's more like, when you're on the other side, you kind of blend with your higher self, which if we talk about that, that's a really cool thing we found out in a minute. But they go to a place, and sometimes souls have been damaged from the pain that they've received, and they had such difficult lives that they go to a place of rejuvenation for a while, where their soul is kind of, it's just like a Tesla car, you plug yourself back in and you kind of heal, what's been damaged and everything. And then when they feel it's time, up there, there's no time and space. So 1,000 years could be like nothing up there, but like down here. But then they decide, okay, let me give it another go, and come down and to try again, So getting back to when I was crying, when I was seeing what I was doing in my past life, I was a guy. I knew my name was Celius, and I can still feel like I'm on this white horse, and I'm straddled. It was big. I could feel it really, really spread me apart down there, and I'm galloping up and down these rows, and I was in charge of crucifying Christians. Oh my God! And I just saw the people on these crosses, but in the mind of him at the time, he was doing Caesar's bid. Is this what he was supposed to be doing? And he saw these people as kooks. Like, oh, they're talking about some guy walks on water, does these miracles. I mean, like a cult, like we would say nowadays.
Correct.
Some crazy guy. Like, these guys are nuts. and with the mentality in that time and the brutality of the world and how life and death was so immediate sometimes, I know in the mind there, I felt that I was not doing a bad thing, but when I was on my deathbed, it was a really realization. My daughter was standing next to me. I can picture her. She had this really long, she looked like she's in her 30s, had this hair that went down, long hair went down almost to her waist. And she was crying as I was dying. I felt I was like in my late 70s or something. And I really had a life realization that in a way I was, I was realizing that I had been doing the biddings of Caesar and what I had done was not right. And I vowed on my deathbed then to never let another person have me do their bidding when inside I really knew it was the wrong thing to do. And that was the lesson I think I learned in that lifetime. And I think that's maybe why in this lifetime here, I kind of have this thing with authority, is I don't like to be told what to do. So I have to balance that out, and really realize, well, is this the right thing or wrong thing? But to never do, like I see a lot of people with Trump right now, and I'm not, I think people, whether they're Trump or not, everybody's got the right to believe the way they want to believe. But to me, when I see how he'll say something and they'll just take it on and do something, it's like they're being controlled, instead of really thinking about, wait a minute, is this right? Is this a loving and kind thing to do? Or is this a negative thing to do? And then making that decision. So
I see a lot of that, or I saw a lot of that in the Vietnam veterans, and I mentored veterans in the Veteran Treatment Corps. People have been to Iran and Iraq in this war that never ends, and they come back and are major traumatized because they'll say, what I did was horrible. How can you live with this?
Yeah.
And I heard someone say, well, maybe in your past life you were a Roman sentry or something, and you came back into this capacity. And remember, one of them said to me, why? I thought you're supposed to get better. If you're a Roman sentry and you were killing people then, and now I'm a U.S. Marine and I'm killing people now, what did I learn? Did I learn anything?
Yeah. It's like as many of the answers that we've answered now about heaven and things like that, there's still a lot more that is almost hard to comprehend or to kind of answer. Like, people can come up with these horrible situations. Well, how could this be so horrible? This doesn't even seem like something. But the thing that helps me is I know that if I was able to have the highest viewpoint to look at the situation, that I would know that there's a reason for it. I'll give you an example of a person who had a 3-year-old daughter that had a bad flu, and he took her to the hospital, and the nurse gave her the wrong medication and killed his daughter by accident. Oh, can you imagine that, having a 3-year-old daughter and some nurse makes a stupid mistake and kills your daughter? I mean, he was this very spiritual person and everything, but he was having feelings of wanting to kill that nurse. I mean, he was so enraged and everything. But being a spiritual person, he asked God, he says, come on, what could happen here like this? Because I feel bad, but I feel like I want to kill this nurse. And so in the dream state, which is the way they communicate with you a lot of times on the other side, his daughter appeared to him and said, Dad, I'm okay. Said, I died, but I'm okay. He said, what you didn't know, Dad, was in a previous lifetime, I had killed this nurse by doing a stupid thing. And I just came down this lifetime to repay that debt and also to teach you some things, about life and everything. So then from then he was able to, like, okay, now I see the higher, I see the reason for this. And he was able to live with it, even though he just missed his daughter like crazy, and had all this emotional pain of death. So, sometimes when we see the higher picture, which when you have this near-death experience, expanded as I call it, because you can stay there as long as you want. It's not just 2 or 3 minutes. You could be there for hours sometimes. You can get answers to these things. And, here's the thing too, is because we're energy. See, now this is, sometimes I say, okay, now we're just researchers here. Right. So but this really expands people's mind, kind of like Dolores Cannon, who's another researcher, just like Michael Newton was. She was doing research on her own too, unbeknownst to Michael Newton, but during the same time in the 80s, 90s, and she just passed away, just like Michael did a few years ago. A lot of her clients would come in, and even with some of my colleagues now, when people find themselves in a past life, sometimes it's not always in a physical body because your energy. There was one person, and she was recalling a life when her spirit, her energy was part of the mist that was actually cooling the earth when it was being prepared for souls to live on it. And she was just saying what a beautiful life it was because she's in this beautiful mist and she's cooling the earth. And just like soul kind of comes into the body, the energy can penetrate anything. So it could be anything, animal, plant, it could be it could be a rock if it wants, because it goes in and it's energy. So it kind of comes and it kind of goes. Now I just got a thought, maybe I'm supposed to say this, about, because people, if you look at reincarnation in a different way, it's a lot easier for people to understand. Yes, we are only born once, but where we're born is in heaven. In other words, that's where, when we're created there. And so we really do just have one life, but we experience that life with a lot of different scenarios. In other words, it's like having one life with many bodies, and it's just a different way of looking at it. It's like, yeah, we're just, God created us and we're always just one time, but we experience different experiences. So different chapters in our existence, and so we take on different forms to learn. So it's a little different way of looking at reincarnation, but some people, they go, wow, that kind of makes sense. We are just born once, and we just live once, but we're just, like we're in this play this week and like an actor, and then we go to this play. Well, wow, I'm going to learn to do this. And we go to another and another and another. And then pretty soon, we really know ourselves.
I just read that recently, and and you just reinforced it, that it's like a play, and you have a different role, and you might be the stagehand or the gaffer, and then you're the star, and then you're whatever. But there's a whole series of things that occur in your life but again, you only have one life, and all these different chapters. I love that explanation.
Yeah,
it's
just a different way.
Yes, that cleared up a lot of additional questions. So it's safe. If there's any issues, we said how to find therapists and where they are. We've talked about Professor Dr. Newton and his theory and where you can go find that, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're skeptical and you want to know more, he has a book. Dr. Newton has probably several books, and you can talk to someone like Regan, and we can see if this makes any sense. Now,
yeah, I'll mention a couple of the books for people to get an idea more about this. And they're sold millions, and they're in a lot of languages. But the main one that's kind of the bridge for people to go, whoa, maybe there's something. It's case histories. I think there's 27 of them in his first book. It is called Journey of Souls. And then he followed up 10 years later because he'd done more research with Destiny of Souls. And then he wrote a couple other books. But if you just go Michael Newton books, in my book, The 3 Hours, 33 Minutes in Heaven, is just about my own personal journey so that people can see how, like now, if they're reading Michael Newton's books, there's a lot that's happened to them prior to this that's got them ready to read his books. Because some people even now, if they're hearing this, they're just changing the channel. They're going, oh, that's a bunch of kooky stuff. That's just because they're not ready yet. And that's not bad or it's not good because, you learn from heaven there that, see, we're on the other side, everybody's equal, even though everybody's different colors. Really? You're purple or you're a combination of colors and everything, or you're just pure white or whatever is your energies. What's beautiful on the other side is it's like what you would want heaven to be. It's just full of light and love. That's period. Light and love. Everybody's there to help you. Everybody's there to, help you to be more, if you would say, Christ-like, God-like. And that's the whole key. And it's learning. Now, here's something that's got me really about how big God is. When you're on the other side, and we'll ask sometimes, or my clients will say, well, can I speak to God? And they'll say, well, where's God? And everybody in heaven kind of goes, They call it the presence. A lot of people refer to it as the presence. So they feel the presence, and they feel it much more strongly than they do here on earth. Like they feel closer to God. But this place that we've discovered, I mean, may only be a level of heaven. You know, I mean, there may be many things beyond this, and hopefully in our research we can start finding out a lot of that. But it's a beautiful place. I don't know, like we going off on random things there, but I'm thinking of one thing that they said to me up there when I asked the council up there, how can I'm learning to be kind. Okay. And I'm feeling good that I think I'm kind of getting there. Like I'm getting the hang of it now. But what else can I do to be, you know, a better person down here? And they said one line to me, which I kind of threw away at the time, but when I listened to the tape again, it just transformed my life. And they said, Regan, you could be a better grandfather. Ooh. And I have 9 grandchildren, but I'm on the road a lot. I've always been kind of, you know, a nomad, going from place to place, living in so many places and experiences. And I never had grandparents myself, really, that I would spend much time with. So I didn't realize how important being a grandfather could be. But since that happened, I've kind of stepped it up. And it's been, I tell you, well, like now I'm just thinking of my grandkids in there, and it just, my heart, it's just like, I go, my God, this is a beautiful thing, seeing these little souls, especially now with the work that I do. And you realize that these little kids in there are old souls, just like me, you know, and they're going through this experience. You kind of look at them on an equal basis, like, okay. And right now as little kids, they're seeing things through little kids' eyes, you know, and as they're becoming more aware that they're this greater soul and everything. And just to see that love, it's just like being in heaven when you're around the grandkids. I mean, there's just this joy that they have, this beautiful,
that's amazing
something. Yeah, I just love my grandkids, which reminds me now, because Christmas, you know, with COVID, and I didn't get to see them. And that I can't wait until this clears up and we have a family reunion. I got to be with the grandkids again. So sometimes, you know, people that have this, like to me, even just learning that one thing, it's almost life-changing for me, you know, and just realizing that I needed to learn that, you know, to these grandkids that I have, that in whatever capacity, I need to be in their lives, you know, even if it's just a little bit here and there and here and there, because it's going to help make their lives a little bit better. And it certainly help mine, you know.
Wow. That is so interesting. That is so interesting. I remember hearing one of my grandmothers would say all the time that she would say all the time, God gave me these children and grandchildren to take care of. They're not mine. Okay. They're his. Yeah. And my job is to protect them and keep them safe and but they belong to God in the big picture. Yeah. Well, Frank, here's a case that I had recently. Actually, it was in Sacramento. I was seeing a woman, and my daughter, Catherine, who I love dearly, let me use her home to see her, because I had to travel 100 miles. So the woman came to my daughter's house, and my daughter's out working. And so we had a great session. And one of the issues she had, she was estranged from her daughter, who was pregnant. Mm-hmm. And for years, her and her daughter had not been on good speaking terms. And she didn't know why. She said, look, I've not been a horrible mother or anything like that. I just don't know why my daughter doesn't want to see me. On the other side, she was speaking to her daughter. Oh, okay. Now I got to back up a little bit here. This is a huge thing. This is so huge. We found in our research that when you decide to come down and to be born, like Frank, when you were up there and decided you were going to come down and you were going to be Frank, okay? You had to look at your life and what you were going to go through and experience and decide how much of your soul self are you going to put into that body. And usually that's one of the questions we ask people. We say, how much of your total self did you put in this human body? And we usually it's usually like 50, 60, 70%, depending on how difficult they think their life's going to be. But what that means is that there's part of you always in heaven. You know, people talk about their higher selves. Mm-hmm. Well, there actually is. Oh my God, that is so beautiful to find this out. We all have a higher self in heaven, which means that everybody that's in your life has a higher self in heaven.
So I've had people that have nemesis in their life, or people that they loved that have passed, well, not passed on, but people that they really love, and they're wondering about, okay, why, like, is this my soulmate or whatever? When they get to heaven, they're able to talk to the higher selves of the people that are currently in their life now. Can you imagine that? Like, you're having, like, one of my clients was having trouble with, she was a nurse, and there was 3 doctors that worked on rotation, and this one doctor was cruel to her, unbelievably so cruel to her all the time, that when he was going to be working, she would sit in her car and have a panic attack because she just couldn't stand to be around this person. So we wrote that down. We wanted to find out why. When we're on the other side, she's before the council, and she says, okay, why is she having so much trouble with this one doctor? Why is he so cruel to her? They said one sentence to her, which changed everything. They said, you were very cruel to him in another lifetime. And she's on the couch like this, and she grimaced. She was going, oh, I did not want to hear that.
Exactly.
Yeah, she did not want to hear that she was cruel to him in another lifetime. So when we came back, we talked about that. And she says, I want to hate this guy so much. And I don't know what happened, but a few months later, it became a non-issue. And she says, I didn't really do anything. He didn't really do anything, but he stopped. It's just not that way it was before. So just, I think, having that realization of what the cause was, something that released in her. And she maybe had this realization that she was getting payback, So,
yeah, wow. I've heard that with going back to prior lives and examining and finding a root cause of a pattern of behavior or things that you do, or why am I always attracted to the wrong person? Those kinds of things you can get by going back.
Yeah, you get answers. On the other side there, you get answers to so many things. Now, you can't kind of get all the answers in one trip.
Yeah,
anyway,
you can
so
imagine.
what I recommend to people is, after 2 or 3 years has passed, maybe it's time to do it again because you've changed because of your first experience, and you might want to go back. Like, I can't wait to go back again because it's been 3 years since my experience, and my life is just, I just can't tell you how wonderful my life feels. No matter like what problems come along, there's part of you now, you kind of learn that you have this higher self. So when you wake up in the day, here's a prayer for you people listening out there, and it'll probably work for you too. I was given a prayer when I was up there to say, as I wake up, and it's, some of it was in my consciousness before I went up there, but they helped me put it in a good context. And they said, as you wake up in the morning, you could say something like, bless this day and those that I serve as I keep one foot in heaven and one foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission. And then you say what your mission is. And it's just that realization as you wake up in every day and you acknowledge that you're this higher self, and you acknowledge that you have work to do today. It puts you in a kind of the frame of mind that as you're going through the day, you're more likely to put pluses on your scoreboard rather than minuses. You're going to choose the loving thing more than the negative thing. And I still do some negative stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm mindful that I did some negative stuff, and I go, okay, try better tomorrow, Regan. Pick
it up again. Well, this has been fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have Regan back again. We're just about out of time here, and this was incredible. This was one of the most inspiring conversations I've had in my life, Regan. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what life throws at you, and it's going to throw a lot, as we witnessed today, please do 3 things. Look up, get up, and never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces, keep moving forward. Better times and better people will come into your life. If you want more information about Regan, you can contact him through his sites, through his books, or you can contact me, and I'll make sure that it gets to him. Now you can
I'll mention my website, which is a good, there's a lot of good videos on there. It's called visittheafterlife.com.
Visittheafterlife.com.
Very simple. And Michael Newton's on there giving some talks. They'll actually see a session on there of somebody going through this process where they go to a past life, and then they go to the afterlife. and you can kind of see it on there. There's also some videos on there on reincarnation. Also on my website, I have a free book right now. It's called Reincarnation is Real, that I'm giving away free now for the next few months. And it's all the latest research that we've done, but not only us, but other researchers in the world, along with some videos of that, especially children that remember past lives, because they remember without even being in hypnosis. And I think they have 2,500 documented studies through the University of Virginia right now, where they've been able to prove what the children said was real, like to be able to go to their past lives and to find out, that what they remembered was actually real. So it's amazing stuff right now. So prove it for yourself. Have a session, and you can prove it for yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to that website, get the information, contact Regan, see what it's like. Now you can see this on ROKU TV and on the near-death experience category under life-altering events. And you can also see it on my YouTube channel. I will send a copy of all this to Regan, and he'll post it wherever he posts things. So let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Regan showed us where a lot of those rocks are.
There's a lot more rocks too. I'd love to come back again, and there's so much more.
We're going to love to have you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, join me next week. We'll discuss another life-altering event. Thank you.